Well, hello, Dragonfly Swarm. I know it's been a while, and by a while I mean almost 2 years. But I've been revived from my permanent slumber by two very strong limited 5-star characters in Honkai Star Rail. I have indeed been doing my studying on these two characters for the purposes of gauging specifically which people will benefit more from pulling for which characters on their specific account. Obviously between Jiaoqiu and Sparkle. I mean, it's no secret by this point that Jiaoqiu is a 5-star Fire Nihility character who we can now very safely assume will serve as a premium teammate for characters like Acheron, and it's probably safe to go as far as saying he's gonna be her most tailored support yet. But alongside his debut banner, we'll be seeing Sparkle's very own first rerun banner, and as players know by now, Sparkle is widely regarded as one of the strongest support units in Star Rail currently. So whether you're watching this video because you want to know what these characters do, or you want to know which of them will be better for your Acheron, or which of them will provide the most bang for your buck on your account, we're gonna go through a little bit of all of that today. First, please like and subscribe if this video helps you because blah 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 blah, it helps the channel. Alright, so starting with what we know quite well, Sparkle is having her very first rerun banner, and she is a 5-star Quantum Harmony character who specializes in supporting the team by granting massive buffs. She can yoink your teammates forward in the turn queue with her powerful action advances, she generates SP at the highest rate of any character in the game, and to double down on that, she literally increases your team's total SP cap from 5 to 7, which is, up until her release, unheard of. Needless to say, these elements altogether work to give Sparkle the status of a very versatile, very powerful character who can fit herself into virtually any team in the game and find immense use. I guess it is worth noting that although she can fit into any team, her most popular and successful teams, as recorded by Prydwen, are currently Acheron teams. Of the many Acheron team variants in Honkai Star Rail, all of the most successful ones feature Sparkle somewhere slotted in, be it the Triple Quantum team, the Pela Acheron team variants, and so on and so forth. That is to say, as true as it is that Sparkle is good anywhere in your team builds, she is statistically most popular and most successful in Acheron teams. Part of this is because with Sparkle, Acheron can completely ignore speed stats in favor of doubling down on offensive stats, like crit and attack, which with Sparkle's action advances provides a considerably higher damage ceiling than Acheron alone could achieve. That isn't to say that you can't still run speed boots on Acheron and adjust your rotations and action advances accordingly, but the fact that speedless Acheron is even a thing because of Sparkle is a testament to her gnarly kit. And obviously other limited DPS characters like Imbibitor Lune Danheng make immense use of Sparkle too, for various reasons, because as again shown by Prydwen, Sparkle's impact on Lune's damage is, even disregarding her most powerful build options, 184% higher damage output than he would be dishing without her. Granted, this is a bit of an inflated stat because it does require that your character be as SP hungry as Imbibitor Lune, which not many characters are, but it's still an interesting way to put into perspective just where exactly Sparkle's strengths lie in terms of teammates. That all said, where are her strengths? Hee-haw, I'm so glad you asked. They're kind of everywhere. There isn't a single team in the game that would turn down extra SP generation, and there are equally few teams who would turn down action advances and massive crit damage buffs, as well as percent-based damage bonuses, and the list goes on and on. Sparkle is undoubtedly one of the most versatile and impactful supports throughout all aspects of Honkai Star Rail, be it MOC, Pure Fiction, Apoc Shadow, Divergent Universe, etc. The only tangible downside to pulling for her is that she does require very specific builds to come online, so you'll probably have to sink more Trailblaze power into building her. This downside becomes especially painful though if you intend to build her as a -1 speed character, much like -1 speed Rania, and that would require speed tuning, and speed tuning, oh my god. Don't even get me started on speed tuning. I have lost my mind one too many times this week. But now that we've gathered a good perspective on Sparkle, we should turn our focus to the other superstar of the second half of 2.4, the brand new Fire Nihility unit, Kazuha. Jiaoqiu. Through Hoyoverse's official reveal of his general kit, as well as other early access content creator guides, we as a player base have been able to peek into what exactly Jiaoqiu does as a character, and he's got a pretty straightforward kit. In staying true to the path of Nihility, he is a debuffer through and through, and he actually has some quite interesting implications in terms of his synergy with characters like Acheron, plus just his potential as a debuffer in general. What we learned through Hoyoverse is that through his basic attacks, his skill, and his ultimate, he has a chance to apply things called Ashen Roast stacks to enemies. For each stack of Ashen Roast an enemy has, they take more damage. It's also worth noting that these stacks will trigger burn on the affected enemies. His basic attack can hit a single target at a time, and his skill can hit a primary and adjacent targets at a time, with the potential to apply Ashen Roast only to the primary target. The interesting thing is that casting Jiaoqiu's ultimate will set the Ashen Roast stacks of every enemy on the field to whatever the highest number present currently is. What that basically means is, if you have one enemy on the field with 3 stacks of Ashen Roast and all of the other enemies on the field have 0 stacks, when you cast his ultimate, now all of the enemies are going to have 3 stacks, which I personally find very cutesy and very demure. Plus, his ultimate creates a field where enemies inside will now take increased ultimate damage for several turns, and obviously that creates some juicy implications for his synergy with Acheron, but here's the really interesting part. It's stated in his ultimate description on Hoyoverse's post that while in this zone, any enemy who takes action will have a chance of inflicting themselves with Ashen Roast. In other words, the enemy can actually debuff themselves inside of Jiaoqiu's ultimate without him even having to take an action, and that's quite an interesting implication. Why? Because it potentially makes Jiaoqiu a very efficient and SP-friendly debuffer, but more importantly, it potentially provides Acheron a very potent battery for her ultimate, wherein she does not have to rely solely on her skill and her debuffer teammates to charge her stacks. She can now sit back and watch as the enemy team inflicts themselves with debuffs and freely charge up her own stacks. Obviously, I can't know precisely how valuable that is because you also have to consider things like speed, since Acheron will generally be faster than many enemies and thus might not make full use of Fox Kazuha's ultimate, but the implication is there and it is promising. Jiaoqiu's kit provides quite a unique playstyle for a debuffer, and it was very clearly designed to support characters like Acheron who thrive on debuff spam and ultimate damage, but that seems to be generally the extent of his power. I can't imagine he'll be particularly demanding of SP, and I also can't see him or his kit being shunned away by any teams in particular across most of the Star Rail in-game content, but I also equally can't see him being someone that every team wants over a majority of other characters. He's a strong debuffer, especially for Acheron and characters who like ultimate damage, but he doesn't seem to stand out anywhere in particular outside of that niche, especially not when compared to someone like Sparkle, which leads me into the meat and potatoes of this video. I'm not one to compare the worth of 2 characters because in my experience that gets you tossed into a mosh pit of passionate, vicious gacha lovers, but if you're like me and you need an educated opinion on who will provide more overall value for your account as of 2.4, here's the general conclusion. Sparkle is clearly going to provide significantly more value to most players in Honkai 2.4. She provides buffs and utility that players could only dream of having, and she allows for crazy rotations and builds that were previously only really viable with the use of Bronya thanks to her very powerful action advance abilities. Ironically too, even within the niche that Jiaoqiu seems to be designed to fill, Sparkle is still going to be a massive asset. By niche, I am of course referring to Acheron, since that lady legitimately carved her own niche into the game. Sparkle, as I stated earlier, is a character who fits comfortably into the majority of Acheron's most successful teams, and that wouldn't change with the addition of Jiaoqiu, because he'd only be subbing in for other Nihility characters. And no, that isn't at all to say that Jiaoqiu isn't a character worthy of being pulled for, nor is it to say that he's weak. What I'm saying is, Jiaoqiu is strong within his niche, Sparkle is strong everywhere. If you only care about boosting your Acheron team's damage, you might not miss out on much by pulling for Jiaoqiu instead of Sparkle. But if you want more bang for your buck, more versatility, and you want to look at the potential beyond your Acheron team, or lack thereof if you're unlucky and didn't pull her, you might miss out on quite a bit of power by pulling for Jiaoqiu over Sparkle. It's also worth mentioning that this is Jiaoqiu's very first banner, so he's a lot more likely to have a rerun in the near future as opposed to Sparkle's, since her second rerun would likely be many months down the road. But anyway, I've said what I wanted to say and successfully persuaded myself to pull for Sparkle over my beloved Kazuha. Jiaoqiu. I'll get him on his rerun. But if you're pulling for him, I'm humbly begging you to join my Discord server and let me know how your pulls go. Subscribe to this channel and I'll see you in the next video.